Phil Collins. For some listeners, he's a songwriting genius. For others, he's shorthand for everything they don't like about 1980s production. But when one of the most respected musicians in rock history, Geddy Lee of Rush, weighs in on Phil Collins as a drummer, it's worth paying close attention, because Geddy's take isn't dismissive and it's definitely not simplistic. So let's look at what Geddy Lee really thinks of Phil Collins as a drummer. So before we start getting into Phil Collins, it's important to understand who is speaking of him here. Geddy Lee isn't just the bassist and vocalist for Rush. He's a lifelong student of drumming, a musician who built his career alongside one of rock's most incredible drummers, Neil Peart, and someone who's deeply aware of how production trends can reshape musical reputations. So, when Geddy talks about drummers, he's not just reacting emotionally. He's evaluating craft, timing, feel, and historical context, which is exactly what makes his comments on Phil Collins so interesting and revealing. In his autobiography, My Effin' Life, Geddy Lee doesn't mince words. He says, quote, "In his prime, Phil Collins was one of the greatest rock drummers you could find," end quote. And that's not faint praise. That's a full-on endorsement, and it's coming from someone who knows exactly what elite drumming looks like. Geddy acknowledges that Collins earned the right to evolve creatively, quote, "so he can do whatever the hell he likes," end quote. But then comes the nuance, and this is where people often misunderstand Geddy's point. Geddy specifically points out to the gated drum sound on In the Air Tonight, not as a failure, not as a gimmick, but as something that was too influential for its own good. He explains that, quote, "Collins inadvertently set a bad example for imitators to overuse," end quote. This is crucial. Geddy's not criticizing Phil Collins, he's criticizing what happens when lesser artists copy a powerful idea without actually understanding it. So the sound became a cliche, and when something becomes a cliche, the originator often gets blamed unfairly. Geddy places Phil Collins in a much broader historical pattern. He compares the gated drum in the Air Tonight to the twangy steel guitar of Speedy West, or any era-defining sound that gets overused until audiences get tired of it. So as Ged puts it, quote, "every period has a sound that becomes its signature cliche," end quote. This reframes the entire debate. So Phil Collins didn't ruin drumming, he helped define the sound of an era and then paid the cultural price for how popular it became. One of the biggest ironies here is that Phil Collins' early drumming credentials are often overlooked. His work with Genesis in the 70s is complex, expressive, and very musical. He could play prog rock and pocket bass grooves with equal authority. And by the time Phil Collins decided to become a pop singer, many listeners stopped hearing him as a drummer, but Geddy didn't. It's also worth noting that Rush never chased trends. They watched them, they analyzed them, and from that vantage point, Geddy can appreciate Phil Collins' technical skill, musical instincts, and even some of those unintended consequences of his success. Take the synth intro to Tom Sawyer, for example. That would be something that Rush had as a musical statement that was overused by imitators. So what Geddy's really saying here is that when serious musicians don't respect Phil Collins, it probably comes from the fact that there was this one cliche drum fill that overshadowed a great drummer and a musician who helped shape the sound of an era. So in the end, as Geddy points out, Phil Collins didn't dilute drumming, but he definitely changed it. So let me hear from you. Do you think Phil Collins is misunderstood as a drummer, or did his sound simply outgrow its moment? Put your comments down below.
Music Guru here, asking you to help us on our march to 10,000 subscribers.